All right, okay. Thank you for staying tuned to the radio 104.7 FM. It's 18 minutes past 9 a.m. and we are saying welcome to the Polity on the radio 104.7 FM. This is Thursday morning, the 11th day of September 2025. Thank you, and we're always glad to know that you are on the other side listening to us each time we congregate on this platform to bring developments in the polity as they are reported by various newspapers. Just to remind you that what we do at this time is to bring you headlines in various newspapers, then draw our analysis and our discussions from these very headlines. My name is Franklin Ebuka, and today's edition promises to be exciting because we have a couple of developments in the polity. And here in Anambra State, a certain lawmaker has been in the news because of the empowerment he did for his people. I'm talking about the lawmaker representing Agwata Federal Constituency, Honorable Dom Okafo. He has been in the news for that empowerment he did. And for him, he believed that he was empowering his constituents for them to engage in agriculture. But that very gesture, which he believed was in good faith, is being condemned by critics who are saying that that's not the way to go about empowerment. What did he do? He gave out some wheelbarrows and some other farm implements to his constituents as a part of empowerment. But Nigerians are not finding it very funny with him because they think that in this era of mechanized agriculture, he should go beyond what he did. Then for the ADC, maybe somebody can say that they have crossed a hurdle because at the end of the day, INEC has finally recognized the interim leadership led by David Mark, and they seem to be in celebratory mood, but they know that they have other hurdles that they have to cross. Then for INEC is crying and raising alarm that political parties have been engaging in premature political campaigns, and the question has been who should bear the card, because INEC says we do not have power to get to make those who are doing this to fall under the law, and police is saying we are going to help. So the question has been, this thing has been with us for quite a while, so why is police not actually taking certain actions, or why are some other regulatory bodies like APCON not taking such measures or taking actions to ensure that people do not campaign way before time? And beyond the shores of Nigeria, something happened in the USA, which the world is talking about because everybody was shocked about what happened. I don't know if you saw the video of how a US conservative activist, and talking about Charlie Kirk, was killed while he was at an event at a university campus in Utah. If you see the video, how he was shot and he was taken to hospital where he was confirmed dead. So all these and more are going to play out on today's conversation. My name is Franklin Ebuka, and I'm with Dr. Tony Olisa Mbeki. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Franklin Ebuka. Good morning, the good people of Nigeria. Good morning in the southeast, the people of Anambra State, in Onitsha, wherever you are listening to us from. It's always a pleasure to be here in our sanctuary where we pontificate the truth and nothing but the truth. And remember, we are saddled with quite a huge task, huge responsibility to enlighten the public and also to be objective as much as we can. We also say good morning to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the author and finisher of our faith, for making everything possible. You are welcome. It's good to be here.
Okay, don't forget that we are always live on our Facebook pages, Udala Radio 104.7 FM on Facebook. You can drop your comment there. On Instagram and YouTube, Udala Radio. Get involved and be dropping comment at the same time, sharing and liking the pages. On YouTube, you can always push the notification button so that each time we post a video, we'll be able to get a notification, and we are going to be glad that you do that for us. So Tony, I talked about what happened in the US, where US conservative activist, and who happens to be an ally of Donald Trump, and he's quite influential even at the age of 31. Yesterday he died after being shot at a campus event in Utah. In fact, if you see the video, he was speaking to a crowd of hundreds of students on the campus. That was on yesterday, being Wednesday, when a single shot rang out, forcing students to flee in every direction. And I must say that 31-year-old influencer, he was rushed to a hospital but pronounced dead later. And Trump has gone on social media to confirm that he is dead. And he said that flags across the US are going to be lowered to half-mast until Sunday in Kirk's honor. And people have been reacting. People have even gone to social media to look at what he's been posting to know if there's a connection to his death. What they have found out, I cannot say for now. But initially, police say some people, 2 persons were arrested in connection to the killing, but they have been freed as of the last time I checked. So what we do see in third world countries is what we saw yesterday in the US. And what does it say about a crime in the world as a general?
Just like you pointed out earlier yesterday, it was very, very devastating, very, very surprising, very disturbing and troubling, the news we got from United States of America. It was a case where a conservative activist, Charlie Kirk, who was the co-founder of Turning Point USA, he was fatally shot during a public event at Utah Valley University in Orem. But the key thing is the fact that the event itself was part of the American Comeback Tour, and the specific format was a Prove Me Wrong debate with about 3,000 people in attendance. I'm so much taken aback, just like you said. What we usually find in third, fourth world country was exactly what we got to see yesterday at the United States of America. Apart from the fact that the police or the authorities have made a clarification that the person was not the shooter, the person who they had taken into custody. But they said that the manhunt was ongoing for the assailant. The key thing is the fact that Charlie Kirk was speaking at Utah Valley University that very day as part of his American Comeback Tour. But we saw how a shooter fired from a nearby elevated position, reportedly a rooftop, at Kirk, striking him in the neck. Remember, Trump witnessed almost the same thing when he was campaigning, but he was able to shift his head, and that was how the bullet perched on his ear, one of the ears. But just that after the shot, Charlie Kirk collapsed and he was transported to hospital. He later died from his injuries. But I'm still wondering, with all the CCTV cameras, with all the technologies, with all the infrastructures, security architecture that US has, no suspect has been definitely identified at this point. No suspect. I had thought by now, through their ICT, through their technology, through their security infrastructure, they were able to tell us who the assailant is. The person or persons taken into custody, they are not a shooter. But according to police, that the people that have arrested, they are people of interest or persons of interest. I don't know. I just felt that these people arrested, they are persons of interest. But the truth remains that even the motive for the attack, as we speak, has not been confirmed. But there are some analysts, sources, interpreting it in the context of rising political polarization and political violence in the US. Remember, Kirk was known for conservative activism, public debates on politically charged topics like gun rights, culture, wars, immigration, and so on and so forth. I understand that this is not the first time such a thing has happened in the United States of America. Remember George Lincoln, Rockwell, that was in 1967, who was the founder of the Nazi Party. He was killed by a rival ex-member, shot from close range in the public. And then you can also understand that these things are common. You can also remember likes of Martin King Luther Jr., how he was killed during a public event.
Now, do you see this resurrecting the debate about gun control in USA?
For me, it will not. I think the issue is, it is crystallized in the laws that guns should be acquired by those who meet the requirements of laws for self-defense. But when we talk about gun control, I think the people are talking about more stricter measures. That those who are qualified to hold this gun or to acquire these guns, that there should be more stricter conditions or requirements, as in to raise the bar. So not that every Tom, Dick and Harry should go on and acquire guns, but the debates, many of them are not going in that line. They are not, because things like this have generated a heated argument in the past during the time of Barack Obama. But I can also let you know that even likes of Robert F. Kennedy, who was shot in 1968, Gabby Guilford was shot in 2011, a congresswoman shot at a public event in Arizona. The woman survived, but multiple injuries led to her death. So the point remains that issue of rooftop and sniper style angle shooting is prevalent in the United States of America, and most times the shooters usually mount elevated position in a more sophisticated than spontaneous way. This also implies premeditation and planning. So in fact, public gatherings these days, I don't know how safe, how they know how secure these things are in the United States of America. So it brings to mind that it is not uhuru. There is no crime in most places. People will think that a place like this, you won't find things like this happening. But my concern is, as at this point, nobody has been identified. It's quite troubling with all the sophistication. So is it the case of the more you look, the less you see? Things that make us believe we are not seeing them doing that. Charlie Kirk, as we speak, nobody has been identified as being responsible, directly or remotely.
Okay, so we are hoping that maybe US government might be able to look at this, because if you look at the record, take for instance in 2023, it was recorded that 46,700 people died from firearm related causes in the USA. And if you're going to look at the recent record, you also see that, just like Tony mentioned, some people were killed recently in USA in gun-related issues. So we're going to leave this and move to other things now. Talking about in Anambra State, where the lawmaker representing Agwata Federal Constituency, Honorable Dom Okafor, did empowerment, which has got many persons talking, and people have been asking questions. Why would he do that kind of empowerment? But for him, he believed that the empowerment was targeted to a certain rural farmers, and he believed that the empowerment is going to help them in improving agriculture, and at the same time perhaps support the initiatives of government of the day. What did he do? He empowered his rural constituents with wheelbarrows, diggers, and some other farm implements, and people are not finding it very funny. But somebody said that he's not going to blame him, because the people he empowered might not have the money to buy such for themselves. According to him, the price of a wheelbarrow has gone up. Perhaps it could be a targeted empowerment. So how do you look at this kind of empowerment?
For me, wheelbarrow has its own symbol, unique symbol in the country, and I can tell you very well that wheelbarrow actually symbolizes suffering. It symbolizes quite a lot, hard work or manual labor. That's what it symbolizes. And just like you pointed out earlier on, we are trying to shift our attention from the age of this physical labor, manual labor, to more modern farming techniques. The truth remains that there are other things. If you want to do agricultural empowerment, so be it. There's nothing wrong. I so much value agriculture, and we know very well that there's so much to take home from agriculture. And for rural dwellers, many of them are into agriculture. And a federal lawmaker, not a state lawmaker, I saw an empowerment, the deputy speaker of Anambra State House of Assembly. I saw the empowerment he did, I think, last week. if you compare that empowerment with what a federal lawmaker did, it is quite disappointing. There are things you can do to improve agriculture. You must think in a modern way. You can't think in a rural way. I have listened to many. Forget the way you try to picture it. You know, in a climate like ours, wheelbarrow means suffering. If you decide to give wheelbarrow to somebody now, these days people don't own it. What people do is to hire wheelbarrow. There's no gain in having such kind of thing, because somebody who hires wheelbarrow for one agricultural thing or the other thinks of at least something much more better. So don't care for those who advised him for such kind of empowerment. Is a kind of a disgrace. Let me say this. I don't know how anybody takes it. I saw wheelbarrow lined up. There are things you can empower people. Not just, I think there are so many vocational skills. Agriculture, yes, one. Give them fertilizer. You can sometimes, give them seedlings. There are prize seedlings that many of them don't even have. Give them extension workers that will come and coach them on how to do some of these things. Not wheelbarrow. Some of the people you have given wheelbarrow, some of them, wheelbarrow may not be the problem. I think wheelbarrow is usually used for harvesting period, trying to take some of these things out. How many would wheelbarrow carry? How many of these farm products will wheelbarrow carry? So my concern is, if you want to do agricultural empowerment, think of fertilizer, think of seedlings, think of probably extension worker services. There are things you think about. Then also think about other skills, vocational skills. Train people in some of the things that are common in that rural areas. There are so many skills, hairdressing, bakery. There are so many things people do in those areas. Decoration and so many things. He got it wrong in a way. In this age we are, wheelbarrow is a disgrace, for crying out loud, for a place like Anambra State.
Okay, so because we used to see that kind of thing maybe somewhere far north, but this time around it's in our climb. So that's the latest we have seen when it comes to empowerment in this part of the world. Okay, so let's get to see the headlines we have on various newspapers. Stay with us. Okay, so as usual, we have 4 newspapers for us to look at the headlines this very morning, and we're going to begin with the headlines on the Guardian newspaper. The banner headline here says FG boasts 80% 2024 budget execution, cites procurement orders for 2025. It's on page 26. In fact, Waledun, the coordinating minister of the economy, was with the House of Reps, where he gave account of on the level of implementation of the 2024 and the 2025 budget, and he said that 2024 budget is at the point of 80% execution. Then below the nameplate of the Ghana newspaper, grid collapse may worsen as Gencos lose 66.26 billion, 1,866 megawatts to load rejection. The story is on page 3. I don't know if power has been restored to any part of Anambra State up till now, because since last night
it has been restored.
It's been restored.
In fact, when I was coming this morning to this very place, I had electricity power.
Okay.
So,
all right. Then this one says Nigeria records 15,000 suicide cases yearly. It's on page 2. Yesterday was International Day Against Suicide, and so many reports have come out from this. We're going to look at it later. Tinubu orders fake committee to crash food prices. The story is on page 3. When we are ordering fake to crash food prices, what are the measures we are being put in place? Then Obasanjo calls for lasting partnership as AITF closes with $48.3 billion deal. Check page 5 of the Guardian newspaper. INEC legitimizes ADC leadership, raises alarm over premature campaigns. The story is on page 6 of Guardian newspaper. Then the last one we're going to take on this very front page of the Guardian is a quote from former NNPC GMD talking about the Kiari, who is now being quizzed by the EFCC. He said, "I have done my part. The EFCC must do theirs. When each of us does our duty without fear or favor, with honor, respect, and commitment, Nigeria moves forward." And I hope he's going to tell them that very story because it's now in their custody. Then look at the This Day newspaper to see the headlines. This one says ADC celebrates as INEC confirms David Mark national chairman, Arebo Shola secretary. And it has a plenty of riders here, which you might take your time to go and look at. And then another headline here says Enugu wins 100 million Model Green State Award as Oluremi Tinubu unveils nationwide ROHI Green Nigeria Challenge. It has a rider say states is clean. Mrs. Simba, we will keep pushing. Check this the newspaper. EFCC interrogates Melekiari over turnaround maintenance of refineries. Check page 43 of this day newspaper. Then, after another grid failure, NLC demands audit of power sector infrastructure. Is on this day newspaper. And then we are going to move over to the Vanguard newspaper. The headline here says 2027 microzoning stress tension in PDP. The story is on page 5. It has riders, and one of them says opposition's prospect brighten as INEC recognizes David Mark led ADC. Jonathan Kwankwaso deepen negotiations. It's on Vanguard newspaper. Then another headline says blackout, businesses suffer as national grid collapses again. The story is on page 19. I hope somebody stay counting the number of times it has collapsed. FG not introducing new tax. Oyedele, page 8 of Vanguard newspaper. NCAA orders airlines to blacklist unruly passengers. The story is on page 8. Netanyahu must be brought to justice. Qatari Prime Minister vows. It's on page 9. He's talking in response to that very attack which was carried out by Israel in Qatar. 2024 budget 80% implemented. Edun is on page 19. And then EFCC grills ex-NNPCL boss Kiari over $7.2 billion refinery fund. The story is on page 6. Senate must allow Natasha back, says ADC ex-Kaduna AG Jacobs. The story is on page 9. Enugu wins 100 million Model Green State Award. Check page 36 of Vanguard newspaper. And the last from the front page of Vanguard, sports column, page 40 says 2026 World Cup qualifier. Blame NFF. Chell for Eagles woes. Kojo. These are the headlines we have on Vanguard. And we are going to cross over to the Punch newspaper. Banner headline says 2027 police INEC move against early campaigns. It's on page 2. The riders PDP ADC accuse APC of violating rules, call for penalties. IG vows to enforce laws. APC denies campaigning, says Tinubu party respects rule of law. And NMPP urges caution. This one says that Tinubu Macron have launched amid France political tension. You can see the picture story there from Mr. President and Emmanuel Macron who are shaking hands. Is there anything Nigeria and the France have in common at this point in time? Nigeria is unsettled and France is also unsettled because under Macron, I think France has had about 5th prime minister under his government. Was it not 2 days ago that the prime minister resigned after he lost confidence vote in the parliament? Then our terror attack suspects lose bail bid. The story is on page 3. Police arrest Obi of Lagos for installation. Don't I hope you saw that very story. We're going to look at it. And then EFCC quizzes ex-NNPC GMD Kiari over refinery contract. The story is on page 14 of a Guardian of a Punch newspaper. Beside the nameplate, Tinubu orders fresh push for crash food prices. Page 2. Yobe holds mass burial as bandits kill 84. Page 14. And the story is saying that about 150 bandits rode on different motorcycles to go into the community to kill people. 84 massacred. Reps Grewedun Bagudu over 2024-25 budget delays. Check page 22 of Punch newspaper. FG rakes in 600 billion naira VAT from Facebook others. The story is on page 23. And the other headlines you can find inside the pages of Punch. You are banned on estate agents illegal. Institute tells Nwifuru. FG set December to decriminalize attempted suicide. And the last one says 720,000 people commit suicide annually. WHO. These are the headlines we have this very morning. Stay with us. Okay, thank you for staying tuned to the Radio 104.7 FM. You are listening to the Polity Thursday edition. My name is Franklin Ebuka and I'm with Dr. Olisa Mbeki this very morning for this our analysis today. And we begin with the major headline here, which is about what happened to ADC, because finally they have seen the light at the end of the tunnel despite the challenge against the leadership of David Mark. We know how he came on board as the national chairman in the interim capacity after Raf Nwosu and others stepped aside and allowed him and the Shara to take over the party leadership. We saw the kicks and the protests, including the one that came from Dumebi Kachuku and others who said that they can't allow hijackers to come in and take over the party. And he's been dragging for INEC to recognize this leadership. And yesterday, INEC finally did by publishing the name on its website. And they have been speaking in tongues saying that one hurdle has been crossed. So for ADC, what does this mean in their bid to unseat the present government?
Just like we actually said many times on this very program, if we have institutions that work as expected without any form of bias or sentiment, these things are things that should have been over by now. INEC is an institution of government. It's a creation of the law we have in this country. INEC was created or is created by the Constitution. And at the same time, their activities are guided by the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and to an extent, its own guidelines. I have been somehow disturbed when INEC fails to give recognition to the new leadership of ADC for no just reason. I don't see the need for celebration. It's something INEC should be berated for making it late even. We have had Supreme Court rulings on issue of leadership, that it is the purely internal affairs of a political party. Political party decides who is their leader or who are their leaders. And ADC, we saw how Chief Raf Nwosu leadership collapsed to give Senator David Mark led leadership a life in a way of coalition, as we have seen, and everything was transparent. But for the fact that INEC denied them recognition, made so many of them not to be a card carrying member, likes of Atiku, likes of P2B. There are so many of them that have not been able to be registered. Some of them are coalition members. They have identified with the party. But the point remains, are they also card carrying members of the party? Have they been able to register at their ward? Why some of them have not been doing or have not done so could be because of this INEC hurdle. It's a good thing that INEC bows to the law. That's what happened. They bowed to the law. But it came very late. It ought to have been earlier, before now. So the point I'm trying to make is there is nothing to celebrate for any institution doing its work. My concern is this ought to have been earlier, before now, when Raf Nwosu led ADC leadership submitted their resignation and change of leadership to INEC. At that point, it shouldn't be more than a week, and INEC should do the needful in accordance with the pronouncements of the Supreme Court on the issue of leadership of a political party, which no court has no jurisdiction, which INEC has no jurisdiction over it. That's what Supreme Court had ruled on different issues surrounding the leadership of a political party. So for INEC to come up and grant recognition, the INEC recognition, though needed, but cannot be misconstrued as the position of the law. The law is it is very clear. The recognition is needed because the portals for issue of nomination of candidates, and at the same time other things, engagement with political parties, INEC, which you know is the regulator of political parties, is very important. So if you watch what happened before now David Mark can access the code to upload candidates, the candidates of the political party at different levels in accordance with the provision of the law. So INEC should try as much as possible to be truly non-partisan.
Now, are you saying that INEC was partisan in the issue of recognizing David Mark as the interim national chairman of ADC? Don't forget that there is a laid-down procedure before INEC can recognize any change of leadership in any political party. Let's talk about the salient ones. Take, for instance, that for INEC to recognize a new political party leadership, the party must follow its constitution. Number one, it must notify INEC at least 21 days before that leadership change. I must allow INEC to monitor, then submit the names of duly elected officers before INEC now gets to update the records. And there are other administrative things that needs to be done, like the issue of submitting register, submitting minutes of meeting, because in the case of ADC, he didn't go for convention. Rather, I found another way of doing this. In that very case, people who were before the party leaders must, in a way, assent that they were conceding the power to a new administration. Now, at the point, INEC was questioned why it was taking some time before ADC leadership would be recognized, and INEC said that the onus was on ADC. And when ADC was asked, the spokesperson Bolaji Abdullahi said that it was just mere administrative issues, that soonest it was going to happen. He said this about 3 days ago, and yesterday it was confirmed. So would you hold for that INEC was to some extent partisan in recognizing ADC leadership?
The reasons adduced by INEC, they are flimsy. Look at why INEC delayed the whole thing according to them. Their main reason, which is, in fact, every reason they deposited, they anchored it or they hinged it on procedural. They said the notification from ADC was deficient, notably missing, according to them, specimen signatures of the new officers. That signature verification is a regulatory requirement for INEC when parties submit changes in leadership, and without the required documents, that is signatories, properly processed resolutions, etc., INEC could not legally recognize the leadership change. And then also they reported the issue of confirmation that the ADC leadership transition followed proper internal process. That's the reason INEC adduced for delaying recognition for a political party since July 2nd. I'm aware that sometime around July 29, Ralph Nwosu, who was then the outgoing ADC chairman, and Secretary Saidu Abdullahi, both of them wrote a letter to the INEC chairman Mahmoud Yakubu, notifying INEC of resolutions passed by the ADC's National Executive Committee on 2nd July. And the resolutions empower the NEC to perform functions of the party's national convention pending its next sitting and they listed David Mark and Rebo Chola and 42 other nation officers as the new leadership. That was on July 29, 2025. So I think it was sometime around August 10 when there was a media report which indicated that as of that date, INEC had not yet recognized the interim leadership, and they gave their reasons. The point I'm trying to make is you wasted the whole of August and you cited specimen signatures. And if you ask Ralph Nwosu said all those things we are given that are not neophytes or naives when it comes to things like this. This is not the first time we've seen transition of political parties. So INEC delayed recognition from the moment the letter was written on the 29th of July. The entire August elapsed. So you want to tell me if there were proper things or major things going on that the party would be denied opportunities? So it's a failure on the part of INEC. So I don't see reason if specimen signatures were not given as according to INEC. I know once INEC notified them, it will be provided immediately. Why do we take time to do things in this country?
So now that we have had the leadership of ADC, we can say it has been resolved. So what about Labour Party? Because yesterday, INEC head of voter education was on television where she was asked that question, and she said no comment because it's a prejudice that she cannot say anything that is still in court. So at what point in time would INEC resolve this issue of who is the authentic national leader of the Labour Party? Because if INEC makes a pronouncement now, I bet you that most of the problems in the Labour Party could be reasonably be at a point of resolution.
If you talk about Labour Party, INEC saying that the matter is in the courts, and Supreme Court saying no court has jurisdiction to decide the leadership of a political party. Who are the claimants? Nenadi Usman, and you have Julius Abure on the other side. Julius Abure, by law, his tenure has expired. INEC should know that. By law, his tenure has expired. And by virtue of the committees set up by the Labour Party, and they came up, which the NEC, and if you look at those who were involved in the NEC, these are people who are holding political positions, who are members at the state level, the executive of the party at the state level, and at the same time members of the National Working Committee, which Abure and his own people decided not to attend. You can't hold a political party to a ransom because of your own selfish ambition. And the generality of these people came together and said, Abure's tenure has expired and we are raising an interim leadership, just as we have in the case of other political parties. So how can you now say you don't know what to do? If you don't know what to do, would you accord recognition to somebody whose tenure has expired according to law? And you are saying that this matter is before the court. The Supreme Court has ruled. It got to Supreme Court. Supreme Court ruled that most of the things, applications Abure filed, we have discussed this extensively here. So, and the Supreme Court made a ruling. So can't INEC see the light in the ruling of the Supreme Court?
So what is keeping INEC? Because if you look at the last thing that happened between INEC and Labour Party, you can say that at the moment, INEC appears to somehow recognize that Abure's leadership is no longer valid. Take for instance, in the last by-election, the list of candidates that was submitted by Abure, INEC did not recognize that, and the INEC even told Abure, if you want to appeal to court or appeal to God, you can go ahead and do that. We are not going to recognize it, and the INEC did not recognize that. Labour Party did not participate in the by-election. So, how long would it take INEC to do all the legal analysis and come out conclusively to say this is the leadership of Labour Party that we know, and update that on its website so that they can put to rest this issue of Labour Party leadership crisis?
I think let's go by. I believe the Nenadis man should probably go back to Supreme Court and then go for enforcement of his ruling. Simple, go back to Supreme Court. Because if they keep looking at INEC, this would continue and linger. Supreme Court has made a ruling. And you can also, I know if you want to enforce Supreme Court ruling, you can start at the Federal High Court, no doubt. But you can also file contempt at that level for INEC failure. But it will be another marathon. By the time you begin to file contempt at the Federal High Court over the ruling of the Supreme Court against INEC, and at the same time with the provision of imprisoning INEC chairman for not obeying the ruling of the Supreme Court, it's a matter of fact that the Supreme Court held on the 4th of April this year that the Federal High Court and the Court of Appeal had no jurisdiction to entertain the suit seeking to recognize Julius Abure as the national chairman of the Labour Party because the matter concerned party leadership, which is internal affairs of a political party and not justiciable in those courts. That was the ruling of the Supreme Court on the 4th of April 2025. In fact, the Supreme Court went on to set aside previous judgments of both the Federal High Court given sometime around October 2024 and the Court of Appeal, which was delivered January 2025, that recognized Abure's leadership. Supreme Court set aside those rulings. Federal High Court had recognized Abure. That was sometime around October 2024. Appeal Court went on to recognize Abure. That was January. Supreme Court set aside those rulings. And the court struck this suit by Abure's faction for lack of jurisdiction. It also dismissed the cross appeal filed by Abure's side as unmeritorious. Because, in fact, the court emphasized that political parties must respect their constitutions, internal processes, and tenure limits. Because the argument is that Abure had overstayed. He doesn't want to respect tenure limit. And Supreme Court made that very statement. You should maintain and respect internal processes and tenure limits. If an officer's tenure has expired, they are expected under the law to vacate office. That was a direct statement to Abure. Supreme Court was not speaking to vacuum. They were speaking to Abure. So with all these statements that are clear, INEC is still dilly-dallying, doing dancing. What is there again? Maybe. So for me, if I were in the shoes of the Nenadi Usman, they should go straight to Federal High Court and start a contempt proceeding against INEC chairman.
Okay, talking about INEC chairman, because that yesterday, he decried increasing cases of early political campaigns across the country, labeling them a clear breach of Nigeria's electoral laws and a threat to democratic governance. And he pledged to collaborate with the National Assembly and political stakeholders to amend the Electoral Act, granting INEC the power to sanction defaulters. INEC, who actually had a one-day roundtable on the challenges of early political campaign yesterday in Abuja, and it was held at the Electoral Institute in Abuja on Wednesday. So during that very roundtable, INEC chairman highlighted what he described as a disturbing trend of political campaigning ahead of scheduled timelines. And this is not the very first time we were seeing this. Today, if you go to some cities, you see billboard of people who have intention of running for presidency in 2027, even for governorship, littering different streets and different locations across the country. And now that INEC is picking up, somebody can say it's belated, but somebody somewhere else too can as well say it's better now than never. But the question has been, why has it been so difficult for people who should enforce this to take actions, other than all the time making comments in the media that these things are there?
The provision of the Electoral Act, specifically Section 94, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act as amended in 2022, is not biting. That provision seems to be advisory, because that provision talks about campaigns commencing 150 days before polling day and ending 24 hours before the election. So that's what that provision is talking about. Section 1, Section 94, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act is not biting, and any law that has no biting component of it is advisory in nature. Because if you read that very Electoral Act provision or the provision of the law, you can understand that no. Let me go through it. And possibly most times when you see fines or possibly the punishment given to the offenders, it's laughable, quite laughable. It tells us and it shows us that we are not serious in this country for anything, especially when it comes to our electoral system. We are not serious. Something, a serious breach, and all you could do is to rule out a fine of 500,000, which you know is not up to the money most politicians give to their side chick. So for you, that's fine. We are not serious. There's no doubt. But I must also point out that we must strengthen our laws. We must strengthen our laws. Because if you look at it, the limitation on political broadcast and campaign by political parties, according to Section 94, if you look at subsection 1, for the purpose of this act, the period of campaigning in public by every political party shall commence 150 days before polling day and end 24 hours prior to that day. And then it goes on under subsection 2, a registered political party which through any person acting on its behalf during the 24 hours before polling day advertises on the facilities of any broadcasting undertaking or procures for publication or acquiescences in any of these publications, but I'm just concerned that commits an offense under this act and is liable on conviction to a maximum fine of 500,000. That's laughable. So anybody who engages in early campaign as against the provisions of this very act, it shows that the person can just pay 500,000 upon conviction, because you must take the person to court. And who will now be the prosecuting team? INEC, please. If you ask INEC, now INEC will tell you no, it's police. If you ask police will tell you it's INEC.
INEC said they don't have powers to prosecute, and they don't have powers to enforce. That's why they're going to go back to the National Assembly for them to amend that section of the Electoral Act so that you can give them powers to enforce, and at the same time possibly add some sanctions.
INEC is just taking unnecessary defense. If they had brought this matter before any court, what stops them? You're a regulator. You are regulating political parties, and if you see infringement, you can take these political parties to court. And you are looking for additional power. So I don't know the kind of power they're talking about. But the point remains that if they want an express provision where the arts we make it clear and obvious that they can go on and do prosecution, so be it. I'm not against that. But the key thing remains that they have been on the backside. And the issue of fine of 500,000, what does that mean? Disqualify the political party from the context. This madness will stop. They should be talking about disqualification. That's the only thing political parties take serious. Just as people will say that Nigerian government takes strike serious, political parties take disqualification serious than any other thing. And situations whereby the principal actors will be barred from engaging in any political contest or activity for a period of 10 years. These are things they take serious. They don't take serious issue of fine of 500,000 or 1 million. For them is nothing. They don't take that serious. So we need to strengthen our laws.
So does it mean that our lawmakers do not know that 500,000 for such a breach is insignificant?
They know, but they know that the people who violate this, they don't want to give themselves such a huge burden. They are the people who are violating some of these campaigns. If you look around, as if we are in 2027 already, you see posters, you see billboard, you see endorsement. But remember, one would say that rally and there has been arguments over political rally and campaigns. What is the difference between political rally and the political campaign? I've heard arguments. One would say rally is more like conscientization, to let people know what is ahead and also ensure grassroots communication, correspondence, and contacts. But campaigns are where you roll out the manifesto and let people see what they are bringing on board and going on further to ask people to vote for you or vote for the other party. But we've seen people argue on debate. We won't vote for you. We'll vote for you. We are going to. And then people have started unleashing their manifestos. These things are subtle campaigns, no matter how you look at it. But I'm aware that political parties can go on and have their rally. But if you go to the rally, you won't be talking about manifesto. You won't be talking about voting for anybody. You won't be telling people that come so time, return this person, because there are many ways to ask somebody to vote for you. When you tell somebody to return me, it's a way of saying vote for me. The word vote may not be there. And when you tell somebody that at so time, ensure you do the right thing, you know what to do, it's also a subtle way of campaigning for votes. So these things are part of campaigns. But when you go out there to talk about your political party, to talk about how you people have been faring when it comes to operations as or within the context of political party, not within the context of elections.
So if we're going to make amendment to the electoral act, of course it's going to be holistic, because from what the picture you just painted now, sometimes you might be on the road and you see a billboard of somebody you know, maybe within you know that this person has an interest to contest for any certain political position. But in that very billboard, it is not stated. The person just mounts a billboard with his face and tells you, be a responsible Nigerian. So when you see such, maybe because you know that very person, you know where he is headed, but it's not boldly written that he is campaigning for anything. So can we also put out in the realm of political campaign, if that could be so? So what is the needfulness for us to look at this amendment and define what these premature campaign activities are?
We must first begin by defining what a campaign is. You must define it in the law we're making, that a campaign is so this, so that. So it has its own context. So anybody who goes against within the provision of this context knows that you are doing campaign, because as we speak now, some people will tell you there's no way campaign is defined. So what do you call political campaign? Most times in our process of lawmaking, we must define some of these terms. We wouldn't assume that these things are known, because the idea of defining these terms is to give them context. Very important. You must define them. So in any way, if somebody does it, it is obvious that the person has entrapped himself into such cycle. So the point remains that in process of lawmaking, every term is defined. There's no assumption. We will definitely try to define it, but we must strengthen our laws.
Okay, so you are listening to the Radio 104.7 FM, and this is the Polity, where we are bringing you newspaper headlines and then drawing our conversations from the major headlines. We are going to go to the other story about EFCC quizzing ex NNPCL GMD Mbeki over refinery contract. If you look at almost all the papers have this very story, and from what we gathered yesterday, the former GMD of NNPC Mbeki, he arrived at EFCC headquarters in Abuja for interrogation over refinery maintenance and contract related issues, and it was confirmed that as of yesterday, he was being quizzed because EFCC had given him an invitation for him to come to the headquarters, and yesterday he honored that. And from what we gathered, he had a long session of interrogation with investigators. In fact, as of 8 p.m., he was still there. So if he slept there, we cannot say. But all we can say is that he's been interrogated on turnaround maintenance of refineries and contracts, amongst other issues. And we know that it was under his watch that the three refineries we have, underwent rehabilitation. And we are told that two of them, came back to life. The first was the Port Harcourt refinery and later Warri refinery. And we are told that they were dispensing petroleum products. In fact, there was even a media, media bazaar in Port Harcourt to show that trucks were loading from that refinery. The one of Warri also came on board. But just few weeks after, we got another report that the refineries were not functioning, and it's been confirmed by the new NNPCL GMD, who said that they had to shut everything down because production was not giving them anything. So, Tony, how many questions is this man going to be answering before the EFCC?
More than 5 questions, or even more. I recall these notes a process that started today. Yes, he was going to ask questions on misappropriation of funds. Just like you mentioned, funds allocated for the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery, Warri refinery, and Kaduna refinery. I'm aware that there is this petition that alleged that the actual cost of those rehabilitations was concealed, contracts were irregular, and payments to contractors and consultants inflated, as some of these payments were not transparent. Specifically, there is a mention of about $7.2 billion refineries turnaround maintenance project. And that's a huge money. Do you know what is $7.2 billion? So you ask yourself, how much did Dangote invest in the very refinery he built? That amount will build a brand new refinery. Just like I said earlier on, the exact amount is concealed, but in the petitions I have cited, there was this mention of $7.2 billion refineries turnaround maintenance. So EFCC, I know, before now, they have placed Kyere on a watch list, and 4 bank accounts linked to him have been frozen by court order as part of the probe. He's going to answer questions on tax evasion, economic sabotage, because there was a time coalition of lawyers and civil society organizations filed petitions alleging tax evasion, economic sabotage. They went on to include abuse of office while Kyere was GCEO from 2019 down to 2025. So he is going to answer questions relating to whether there was such. The longest serving NNPC Limited Group Managing Director, that's Mele Kyari. He was there from 2019 until he was removed in 2025. So he's going to answer questions on the issue of tax eviction as petitioned by coalition of lawyers and civil society organizations. I'm also aware that, just like I said earlier on, in August 2025, EFCC got a court order to freeze 4 bank accounts linked to Kyere, and these accounts are suspected to have received suspicious inflows tied to NNPC Limited and oil companies. In fact, one account is under a foundation, Guwori Community Development Foundation. Total amount traced in those accounts is about 661 million naira. That's a stupendous amount. That's the total amount traced to these 4 accounts that have been frozen. And if you look at the funny thing about these accounts, just like I said earlier on, the funny thing about these accounts is the fact that they opened the accounts using a foundation, Guwori Community Development Foundation. But from painstaking and clinical investigation, these accounts are tied to Mele Kyari. So he's going to answer questions about these accounts. Yes, court has given order for these accounts to be frozen. So apart from that, issue of contract awards, apart from the turnaround maintenance, remittances under Mele Kyari, he introduced under recovery regime. I don't know what is under recovery, and subsidies under him, how these things were implemented. He was spending from the sales he made. I have been a manager and I know what it means. You must spend from your interest.
Now, Tony, do you see us making a difference in this case of Mele Kyari? Because if we're going to go back to history, most of the GMDs who served NNPC, they were at one point or the other probed by the EFCC. In fact, some of them were even charged to court. But I don't have any record showing that any of them was convicted. Take, for instance, let's refer to Andrew Yakubu, who served as a GMD of NNPC. He was charged by the EFCC in 2017 with money laundering, fourth asset declaration relating to $9.8 million US, and a £74,000 found in his property in Kaduna. You know that very story, how £74,000 cash were found in his house in Kaduna, and he was taken to court. At the end of the day, he proved that it was a gift to him. And what happened was that in 2022, Federal High Court in Abuja discharged and acquitted him of those very charges, and saying that the prosecution failed to prove any element in that very case beyond reasonable doubt. So are we going to have it different with Melekiari?
It may or it may not. It may or it may not, depending on the. Remember, the regimes are quite different. So my concern is, I'm seeing the one of Melekiari being, because from the look of things, everything about him is being treated with kid's glove. If I'm to borrow the works of Sani, you remember when he said that there are those who would commit offense.
Is it Shehu Sani?
Shehu Sani, you will use insecticide. There are those who will commit offense, you use deodorant. In the case of Melekiari, I'm seeing deodorant being used.
Why are you saying so?
If you ask me why I said so, remember how close. I'm just trying to make an opinion. How close Melekiari was to the group chief executive officer of Wando PLC, one of the Africa's leading energy companies. Remember Wale Tinubu, that is Jubril Adewale Tinubu, a Nigerian lawyer, businessman, is the group chief executive officer of Wando PLC. He was so close with him. And there are reports that also have it that he's a brother to our president. And there are many businesses, I can quote so many things Melekiari did say while he was chairman of the group managing director of NNPC Limited. In fact, in December 2024, when Wando acquired Ajib's assets, NAOC, from Eni, I know Kiere facilitated such acquisition. And then he congratulated on Wando and praised the deal as an example of the ability of indigenous companies to take over major assets. In fact, he has also publicly mentioned that how they will work closely with Wando to increase production in oil and gas under the new joint venture arrangement, and it was a protracted acquisition process. Ordinarily, I don't want to talk about the company, the Seplat, the one owned by ABC. I don't want to talk about that. But
so you believe that he has many roots in different areas? Definitely.
So, just like you've seen the process ongoing, invitation for freezing of bank accounts and these things, you talk and go. I'm seeing deodorant being applied. Do you see what is going on with the case of former CBN governor? One would ask, between former CBN governor and Melekiari, who committed more infractions? It is left to investigation anyway, but you can picture both in that lineup. There is always this relationship between NNPC Limited and the CBN. There are remittances expected, and I said it is under the regime of Melekiari that NNPC Limited was spending from their cells as against spending from the Impress account they should be operating with. I said it here. And they introduced what they call under recovery to our system, to our. You see, my concern is the accounts of NNPC Limited. We are not audited for a very long time as against the company policy. You know what it means to work on with an unaudited account for a very long time, and nobody's talking about that. The National Assembly kept mum. Everybody kept mum. It was a highlight by Sanusi when he said that NNPC did not remit about $20 billion that led to his retirement, compulsory retirement. So, for me, I've seen the other one being applied in the case of Melekiari. If he is being subjected to what the former CBN governor is facing now, we make more discoveries.
All right, just to let you know that EFCC is currently probing a total of $1.5 billion US allocated to Port Harcourt refinery, then $140.6 million released for the Kaduna refinery, and $656.9 million approved for Warri refinery. This is what EFCC is probing. And then we have to look at this very story before we go for this very commercial break, talking about what happened in Lagos, where Lagos State Police Command has arrested one man who was planning to unveil an Obi Palace in Lagos. Now, the story says that Lagos State Police Command has arrested a 65-year-old man, Chibi Kiazobike, for allegedly parading himself as the Obi of Lagos. He was apprehended alongside 3 alleged accomplices while attempting to stage an unlawful unveiling ceremony. The arrest comes against the backdrop of growing ethnic tension, particularly among youths on various social media platforms who exchange banters over Azubike's planned installation. Azubike is said to be an indigene of the Oboduku ancient kingdom in Idaton North local government area of Imo State. Was arrested alongside 3 others, like I told you, and those arrested are aged between 41 and 65. Now, the 4 are currently being held at the command's headquarters in Ikeja, and according to the police, the group planned to unveil a prototype of a purported 1.5 billion naira palace of Obi of Lagos State on Saturday, September 13, 2025 at the Apple Hall in Amuwo, Dauphin. And the command noted that the venue has been sealed up by security operatives to prevent public disturbance and to protect unsuspecting citizens from being deceived. Some persons are already reacting, like already we pointed out in this very story that people are divided. Some are asking questions, why would police move in on such? And somebody is saying, why would you go to someone else's land and begin to perpetuate or install what you call Obi's palace? That it's enough to incite unrest. Tony?
I think I have to speak from the position of the law. That has always been my style. Many people who are talking may not know about the Chief's Law Cap C7 Laws of Lagos State 2015, originally Chief's Law of 1959. Many of them may not know about that. And this is the principal law regulating chieftaincy matters in Lagos. In fact, it empowers the governor of Lagos State to approve the appointment, recognition, or deposition of any chief or oba, decide on dispute concerning succession to chieftaincy titles, recognize or withdraw recognition of a ruling house or chieftaincy family. Many people have gone to either parade themselves as Obi of Lagos. Are they also aware of Chief's Law Cap C7 Laws of Lagos State 2015? You don't just come up and start doing anything.
All right, so Tony, you just raised something which I would like us to hold our thought on it. After this very break, we're going to let you in on what the laws say so that you will understand why the police is taking such an action in Lagos State. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Seriously authentic.
Quality bread, Wendy's bread. For your family breakfast, Wendy's bread. I'll pack it on the Dosialo, Wendy's bread. Mama, papa, they like Wendy's bread. That you turn and do Wendy's bread. Even children, they like Wendy's bread. Wendy's bread, meantime. Wendy's bread. You get it better, tasty, we go sweet your belly. Wendy's bread. Wendy's your battery chama. Wendy's bread, the champion.
Wendy's bread, your tasty bread. You can contact us on our official address, 2nd Business Park, Enugu Road, GRA, beside FM Onitsha, Anambra State. We also have another branch at St. Michael Plaza at Tandy Road. Also contact us on 070-1149-1571. Wendy's bread, your tasty bread.
Wendy's bread.
My people, I present to you the most preferred governorship candidate for Anambra State, John Chuma Nwosu of the African Democratic Congress, ADC. John Chuma Nwosu is ready to take Anambra State from insecurity to peace, from regression to progression. Vote John Chuma Nwosu. Vote ADC, African Democratic Congress.
ADC! ADC!
104.7 FM. Seriously authentic.
You're listening to The Polity. Get involved now.
And of course, in the next 2 minutes, we are going to bring you on board on this very program today. You are listening to The Polity on Udala Radio 104.7 FM. Before that very commercial break, we're talking about how police moved in on one man who was parading himself as a B of Lagos, and he was trying to unveil a palace in Lagos. And Tony said there is a law in Lagos that regulates issue of traditional stool and other related matters. So you're going to hear more from him on that development.
Just as I was saying, it's important that we must comport ourselves and do everything within the ambit of law. Ignorance is not an excuse. You can't just come from nowhere. You're unveiling a palace, you're unveiling Obi. Are you aware that before you become a traditional ruler in Lagos, there must be such approval from the governor? Are you aware who appointed you? And let me say this. In Lagos, based on their laws, they are recognized traditional titles. Obi of Lagos is unknown to the Lagos law. He is not recognized. If you go there, you have Oba this, Oba that, and some chiefs. These are in accordance with their law. So what police did is completely right. Because they must act fast. And then the people involved will be prosecuted in line with the Chief's Law, Cap C7 laws of Lagos State 2015. I can't see where anybody, just like in Anambra here, all of a sudden, somebody will spring up and then declare himself Oba of Anambra without knowing that there is even a certificate. The governor must, certificate of recognition, and there must be an approval. And it must be in line with the customs and tradition of that very area. And the title in question must be something recognized by the law. If these people, I know, if they have made so much money, because if you look at the palace, we are told that the cost of the palace is about how much?
1.5 billion.
1.5 billion mansion. You've made so much money to the point that the money has become a kind of something that will always make you to think you have bought the earth. You unveiling 1.5 billion naira mansion as palace, and you want to also install and do investigation as the Obi of Lagos. Don't you know there is law that guides and regulates some of these things? Do you think you can come out from anywhere and declare yourself Oba or Obi?
So because this issue or this development has once again resurrected this very debate of that Igbos go to people's land and begin to dominate. You can see such conversation already on X ever since the development came to the fore. So is this lending credence to that?
I think it may. I know that Ezendibo, if you have a Borapo, I think Ezendibo was conceived as a kind of trying to bequeath leadership to their Borapo. Borapo is communal gathering. If you gather in a place either for meeting or association, then the title of Ezendibo. But remember, title is something of a traditional stool, and it cannot be used. I have criticized all manner of Ezendibos in some places, but there are people who have, through legal process in that respective state, they have been able to meet with members of the state assembly that also expanded the legislative framework or the legal framework of such titles, where it is also recognized by the laws, and which most times, if they are given, the governor will give them certificate of recognition. But it's just rare. I think it's just in one place like Osun State or thereabouts. But outside this, I have not seen where, if a governor does not give you recognition of any traditional stool, it is illegal. Illegal.
Okay, so you need to see the reactions on this very story. If you go to Punch newspaper, where they posted this story on Facebook, it has gathered about 2,000 plus reactions, and you can see Nigerians, of course, making the comment along ethnic line.
The point is, many people are ignorant. That's why we are here. That is why we are here. You don't make statements ignorantly, and people usually make their statements on the premises or on the angles of sentiment. If you go to Ghana, you will see Ezendibo na Ghana. If you go to Cameroon, Ezendibo na Cameroon. If you go to some places, you have Ezendibo here, Ezendibo there. If you remember that Wajiako that was arrested by, I think, DSX, where he but you know why we condemn his arrest was when Igbos were being attacked in Lagos and the authorities were not doing anything. And he went on to say in a video that he will bring the IPOB to provide security for them in that very place. Before you know it, DSS came and arrested him. And to date, I don't know if he has come out. So, he was one Ezendibo of at a particular place. I can't even recall. We must comport ourselves within the ambit of the law. When you come to a new place, ask what does the law say before you go on and do anything. There's no law prevents you from gathering. Freedom of association is enshrined in the Constitution. You can gather as people, you can gather as but the title must be something that which does not conflict with existing law. You can call yourself Onyendu Anyi. Onyendu is not a traditional stool. Onyendu Igbo. Ozi Bondo. All these, those ones based on Morocco level. That is a kind of association which Constitution has given you right to form and to belong.
Okay, so let's go to the phone lines now and have your take on these very issues we have raised this very morning. 0803-221-6973 or 0803-827-6694. Don't forget that we have our social media platform for you to also cascade this very conversation on Facebook, the Radio 104.7 FM. Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very, very much. Olisa Mbeki and my friend Franklin. Let me just say this the way our people will understand, and I begin to talk about this in English. If you be can go ụmụ Igbo a na-asị na Igbo obi ka mkpawalụ ụlọ kịta ndị Igbo niile ada enwe obi na-abọ n'ofu obodo. Igbo hold obiship with all due respect. Dịka ila abụmọdazi ila ka m si akpọ anyị nwere ike inwe obi na-adị ogbele anyị na-abọ na ila inesi ugwu awụsa dị ila asị mụ na Igbo obi na ila isi ọnịcha akpa isi na Igbo obi osi Igbo tụka ji nwata ụwa aka kpuchie. Ọ bụrụ na unu akpaga ego anwa unu lotakwa na bụ unu n'ụzọ adịrị ya ụlọ ọgwụ adịrị ya ịnọdụ n'obodo ndị ọzọ na-asị na ife mapụ n'Igbo obi ịbụrọda nkete gị ọrụ asịa ka o meghe ime eme ya asị ọ dasị ya bụ obi ndị ugwu ka eze na-emeda ya echikịta achụba anyị asị we are marginalized ya be please ndị niile na-ege m ntị tell them I said that and I've been saying that now so Meleke Ari. Well, it's just a pity the chicken has come home to roost. The then roost. Will the heat be hot enough or the cold is enough? Now, what has happened to his predecessors? We had humongous sums of money that we are hearing again. So he's had more tentacles. But then, what have we done to them? Now, to Trump and his friends. It's a pity. But you see, up there, they believe human being is fallible. God made it like this. Man must die, no matter the technology. There is no one that we've done so far that stops there. Except here, though they have the will, the gods to find out, to inquire. Yeah, we just hand it over to God. Well, Lugo, his dead is gone. Now to ADC. Electoral act, and they have to look into electoral act when they've done the party, electoral act, and then the judiciary and internal democracy, rule of law within the political parties. We have them on paper.
All right.
So, thank you very much. Have yourself a good day.
All right. Thank you for calling. Good morning.
Good morning, Frank.
Yes, good morning. Your name?
Olisa Mbeki. Good morning to you, Marrakesh. Calling from Onitsha.
You're welcome.
My speaker, I don't know. Yorubas, I don't know what is their problem. Yorubas, I don't know what is their problem. But my speaker, let me just tell us the truth. This is democracy. Anybody can answer any name. Listen, somebody answering Obi of Lagos, whether it is recognized by the government or not, somebody can be a leader of anybody and answer Obi or answer anything. So long as there is no empire that is conflicting with. He is not saying that he is Obi of Yoruba Lagos. He is not saying that he is Obi of the government of the state, but Obi of Ndibo. And there is no legal.
Sorry. Hold on. Let's stick to facts. He didn't say Obi Ndibo. He said Obi of Lagos.
Obi of Lagos State.
Yes.
Well, to me, if you want to read meaning to the Obi of Lagos, Obi is an Igbo name, and there is nothing like Igbo owning Lagos. Be mindful.
Okay, all right. Okay, so so let's take another call. Maybe we're going to get back to this later and maybe do more analysis on this. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Your name?
Good morning, my speaker, Tony Becker.
Yeah, welcome. It's good to have you.
And my brother, this is the voice of Ignatius Okoye from our ancient kingdom.
Go on, Mr. Ignatius.
Obi, after Obi, Lagos, do they know anything about Obi? They don't know anything about Obi. They are trying to, what is they do there is Oba and other things. So they are not doing this. I know that our people.
Are you still there? Can you hear me?
Meaning that Igbo people are the people who got by this man to be title in their own way of doing things. It doesn't concern Lagos State government here. And let me say what I want to say concerning our talk. The recognition of the mark is a welcome development. Today I rejoice. Now we are going to have vibrant opposition in Nigerian politics because PDP is no more there. Labour the same thing. And many people are afraid of entering ADC because of they don't know what will be of their leader. Now that the INEC has recognized them, gate is open for them to go ahead and join Labour. I'm going to join ADC. And officially, I know many people are about to join them now. And the way for them to start happening now is wrong. But they will do it indirectly, in a hidden way. They can canvass dollars in a hidden way. So let them not come open and make it more open. INEC will not like it. Like someone like Obi, I took them. Now they have right now to enter ADC. They used to have a carrying member. Thank you, my speaker. I'm done.
All right. Okay. Thank you for joining. Hello. Good morning. Okay. Try again. Don't forget you can use our social media platforms to pass your view towards 0803 221 6973 or 0803 827 6694. Good morning. Yeah, yes, good morning. Your name?
My name is Basil. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Did you say Basil?
Basil.
Lagos.
All right, go on.
I think that our brothers are taking this in the wrong way. Going to a no-match land and building 1.5 billion naira mansion and calling it to Dove Lagos. I think it's mistaken. This shouldn't be happening because yes, even if you come to Onitsha here where we have Obi and calling it Obi and go to another place called Obi, it looks like the way it sounds. It is great that position of Obi because Obi has a kind of prestige. It's not everybody that will start answering Obi from the village, Obi of someone without anybody giving you that title, without a kind of a thing giving who give that people the kind of position answering the review of this place. No, this thing has a kind of significant distinction in our culture, even our culture. It doesn't represent ordinarily. What should the ordinary person without anybody correctly as you will be, you call yourself as you will be of the God state, and you say that police shouldn't arrest you. No, that's where it's found. So we should all stop this kind of embarrassing ourselves in different countries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for joining. Hello, good morning.
My name is Comrade Watson. I'm calling you from Onitsha. Can I go on?
Yes, you can go on, sir.
Thank you very much. Let us put law by the side. At least let us apply our common sense. I want to advise my people brothers who are living in Lagos, who are billionaires. You see, just respect yourself. Anywhere you find yourself, do well to respect yourself. You know the dynamics of this country. You know that Igbos are hated anywhere they go, even across the world. It cuts across this, even Nigeria. Anywhere Igbos are, they are hated because of the natural gifts they have. Now, in a situation like this, with the current political atmosphere in this country, you know what happened in 2023, where Igbos were barred from voting, and the presidential spokesman came out openly and they made some statements that nobody has even questioned him till today. You now have the God go to another man's land and decide to unveil yourself as to be of Lagos. Even if Lagos state law didn't prohibit that, why will you do such a thing? Now, ordinary police have arrested you. You don't even have anything. You don't even have contact. Because in this country, we know that institution doesn't work. You know, what we have in this country is how connected you are. You are not even connected. You just make money. Ordinary police, you get on the arrested. How will you describe this kind of situation? So I want to advise our people, I think there's something we have, I can't check.
All right.
You have money, take your money, enjoy your money, and stay away from trouble. Now, ordinary police are, okay, let us see how it stands out. Now that the Lagos State law is against it, let's see how you see yourself through it. Good morning.
Okay, good morning, comrade. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, the parliamentarian.
Your name?
Obike from Obosi.
Ngwafwan.
I proceed.
All right.
You see, Dr. Olisa Mbeki have said it all. And all that you have seen in that Lagos state. See, no matter who you are, as an Igbo man, if you enter any state, you ask questions. Lagos state, they have that strict law. I know one guy for Ajawe state. The guy just in now for 2 years plus now. The guy that answers in Igbo somewhere in Lagos. Who give you that authority? Who give you that power? And you know that that law is existing in Lagos. You can never try it in Lagos. So many of them will come in different places. They are in Lagos. Out of this of that. Is it Kapara state? Somebody's state. And you know that there is law there. They need to abide by the rules and constitution that guide that state. They are the ones they call me for Banana Island. They be all for here like this and that. I tell them, say, okay, I can never associate with this kind of level in life. Because I know that there is law in Lagos that cancel this. I don't need to partake with anybody in this kind of offer of this or you go up with this in Lagos State. And later on, they pick him up. So I want some of our brothers that hearing me to step out on that system. If you are doing that, you come down to your state and do it. You know that Lagos State, they strict on it. They don't like it. For you to come in there, they answer that kind of name. And some of you guys that will abide by the rules, they enter that palace. Which kind of palace? Who give you the master? Who give you the authority?
Okay.
To have that kind of structure in Lagos.
All right.
I read my case here. You are blessed.
All right. Thank you.
I think I want to make a reference to the case of SND of Ajawa State. Remember the man that was actually arrested, Frederick Nwajago. Remember that Justice Yetunde Adesanya of Lagos State High Court found Nwajiago self-styled in the Igbo of Ajay State. He found him guilty of unlawfully parading himself as a titled chief in Lagos, contrary to the Obas and Chiefs laws of Lagos State, just like I said earlier on. So the issue wasn't about the voice note he made that he will bring IPOB to provide security in Lagos since Igbos were being attacked. He was charged for unlawfully parading himself as a titled chief. Now the judge, Justice Yetunde Adesanya, not just only found him guilty, he sentenced him to 1 year imprisonment, no option of fine. But Nwajiago filed an appeal challenging the conviction. In fact, he was questioning the constitutionality of sections of Lagos State chieftaincy law. But when I saw the appeal, I laughed because everything about chieftaincy is within the jurisdiction of the states. We have said it many times here. Anything chieftaincy, like the way I am now, Abumogadagide, no sumo. I did not give it to myself. I can't just from nowhere declare myself Ogadagide or for sumo. My people will revolt. The people give chieftaincy, title, and honor. And I know I have other titles. You don't make yourself a king. You don't crown an Igbo. If there are so many Igbo, songs by Osadebe, most times when you listen to this song, you suffer meanings. So the point I'm trying to make, there has been a conviction already, and even the appeal filed by Nwajiago, just like we said here, appeal is before appeal court. But we know that he's saying that the constitutionality of the Lagos State law, but the Constitution made it very clear that issues of chieftaincy is within the ambit of the states.
All right, so let's go to our Facebook page. Stephen Nwoko, Ogwebule Raymond, from Nanya Onyema, Cynthia and Kem, thank you all for watching. From Showlight, Nobi, and the other place you are watching from. Then we go to the comments. Obina Williams Lamparicino says the man's title issue was that of showmanship and popularity. People answer titles like Oba, Igwe, President, Governor, Bishop, etc. on the street without the government coming for them. Dr. Mrs. Molebra from Aware says, how can there be food security when government cannot live up to its basic responsibilities of protecting lives and property? Farmers are being killed and kidnapped in their farms and are afraid to go to farm. In some places, they pay taxes to bandits before they are allowed to go to their farms. This has led to high cost of food items and scarcity in the market. How can there be food security when there is no light? High cost of fuel, kerosene, diesel and gas are contributing factors. And she asking, where do we go from here? Ugochukwu Frank says it was horrible right at his jugular vein in his neck. The gush of blood got me traumatized. He's talking about the man who was assassinated or killed in United States of America. So thank you for joining. Then he goes on to say this kind of kindergarten empowerment actually does indirectly deploy to empower the people economically and pave way for political elite to mismanage the Commonwealth without any foreseeable consequences. The Nepal uprising has reawakened the once passive, docile and stoic populace. That Nepal issue, maybe we'll find time to talk about it, because yesterday I saw how government officials were trying to escape through defense. In fact, some had to grip to a rope thrown from helicopter for them to escape, the raging mob. And then John Mbwe says, on the approval of David Mark as boss of ADC, I smell a rat because it appears David Mark has been put into the office to work for the Aso Rock or for the presidency. We should be careful with people like David Mark. The Mark Obej SJ says the INEC recognition of David Mark led ADC has put to bed the regional leadership tussle within the party, and I strongly believe Nigeria will be liberated from dying in silence or bad leadership. A competent, reliable and accountable candidate should be chosen in the APC to face APC. And also Francis Omaganamani, watching from Amagans in Enugu State, says our political leaders should focus primarily on how to end the incessant killings, hunger, poverty, unemployment and hardship in the country rather than shifting more attention to 2027 general elections. Thank you for joining. So we have to wrap up. Are we going to wrap up with the killings in Yobe State, or the federal government move to decriminalize suicide, or we're going to touch a bit about what's happening in Nepal?
We have got so many, time will not permit us because we can't chew more than we can swallow. If you try to swallow everything, it means that you may be overwhelmed. So probably, decriminalizing, suicide, and then killings in Yobe. We've been talking about killings here.
They said 720,000, right? I'm trying to get the figures right. I'm talking about what WHO said about the number of persons who commit suicide annually. And
it's a staggering number. The number is staggering. And, suicide is usually caused as a result of depression. And is one of the baseline causative factor for suicide. And it's something that most times we are de-emphasizing or deflating it. It's prevalent. It's common these days. People commit suicide as a result of depression. I think we should raise awareness campaign and then try to fight depression. There are people who, for whatever reason, they don't feel happy about anything. What comes to their mind is to take their life.
720,000. And this leads me to what happened in Awada recently, where somebody climbed a mast attempting to commit suicide. And when police convinced him to come down, he was taken in. And people were asking, why should police take somebody who attempted suicide in other than offering help? And maybe that's why we can link it up to what Parliament is trying to do.
It is most important
because law says if you attempt suicide, of course, you must be tried. But in this case, they say they want to decriminalize it.
They have to. The idea is we must concentrate on rehabilitation. We are not looking at that aspect. For one to commit suicide, the person sees no happiness anywhere. The person is not even happy with himself or with anything in life. Or what, the happiness he sees is in death. So we must work on rehabilitation, trying to reform as against trying to put somebody behind bars. So it's important. I think I'm in support of that very law. So, and we can also raise awareness campaigns and do advocacy programs to ensure that things like these are brought to the to the public light, so that people will start taking certain actions as against when it is too late. And for my brothers, remember, I must also say this. I want to make one more statement on this issue of Ezendibo for a thing. Remember, you can have your Korabo, you can be Ezendibo of your own community, but you do not associate it with any state. Every state has its own chieftaincy law. Ask questions about the chieftaincy laws of every state before you begin your SND of a thing or not. But there is nothing prevents you from gathering as a people and choosing leaders amongst you. You can have leaders, but make sure that leadership should not be chieftaincy's tool. Chieftaincy's tool is quite different from leadership's tool. Leadership, you can use any name. And remember, if you answer it as a guy name, it is known that it's a guy name. It is not seen, because there are people that will answer bishop. We have many bishops, but they are not priests. They are not into religion, but they are just answering it as a guy name. So if you're answering SND as a name, not as a chieftaincy tool, that one is not against any law. You are just answering just as a guy name, not as a tool. But once you see it as a tool, chieftaincy tool, it is against the law, because you're unveiling 1.5 billion palace of that is totally against the Lagos state law.
Okay, so we have to end it on this very note today, and we ask you to keep listening to that Radio 104.7 FM, because the moment we leave here, we're going to bring you some good tunes, and by 12 noon is going to be news at noon before Asamoluba comes to bring you as they be. All right, so thank you every one of you for listening. My name is Franklin and Ebuka, and I was with Olisa Mbeki. Good morning.